Hello, my name is Christine, and we are going to be walking through a series where we'll be building an app with Claude Code. And for those who may not know what Claude Code is, it's an agentic coding tool, so you can do all of the same things you do with the code with the Claude, say web application, but you can also use it to create code. And you may be familiar with Cursor and Windsurf and some of those other agentic coding tools. The difference with Claude Code, it runs in your terminal, and there's a few things that you can actually do with it that you may not do with the other ones. So what we're going to do during this series is to build a web application, and we're going to be doing this using Claude Code. And in this case, I do use a lot of AI tools, and when I do, I sometimes forget to cancel or renew it. Anyway, it's actually pretty good to just have somewhere where I can keep track of that. And so that's what we're going to do and build with Claude Code. So as we kind of get started, the first thing you need to know is Claude Code. It actually runs on your terminal, and you can use it with Mac. It also works with Linux and with Windows. And one of the prerequisites is Node, but after you do that, you basically run this command in your terminal to install Claude Code. And once it's there, you can then just get up and running. So what I have here is my terminal, and in here, I've already installed Claude, and I just run Claude update actually periodically to get the latest version. Claude Code is currently in research preview, so what I'm using is the beta version. So just to run it, I will just start Claude, and I can ask it to do different things. For example, if I'm running Claude within a directory which has existing code, I can ask questions about that code. I can also start a brand new project, which is what we're going to do. But in general, before I start a project, I generally like to create a project requirements document, and Claude Code can help with that as well. You can also use other chat providers or LLM providers to do that as well. One thing that I did forget to mention is when you launch Claude for the very first time, you'll be asked to log in, because to use it, you'll either need a Claude Max subscription, or you just need to be set up with billing at console.anthropic.com. All right, so with that out of the way, let's kind of start building this. I'm creating a project requirements and I'm going to use Claude Code to do that, just to kind of give you a sense of what it can do. So when you ask it questions, you can ask it questions, like I said before, about the code, but you may ask it questions where you might want it to spend a little bit more time on that, so you can use words like think or think hard. So in this case, I've given it some information for what I want my app to do to manage subscriptions. And as you can see, it's spending a little bit more time thinking, and you can see the tokens kind of ramping up really fast, and it's basically billing my API because that's how I've got it set up. So it's giving me some functional requirements for this document, and it can potentially just go ahead, and I can even ask it to print it out. It didn't give me as much information as I would like. It says detailed requirements available upon request. Now I can actually go and show you how I created a similar project requirements document. And in this case, I used Google Gemini 2.5. Asked it some of the same similar questions. I had it cycle through, and then towards the end, it gave me a detailed document, and I then asked it, could you actually have it printed out in a markdown format? And it did. And here is, because it's Google Canvas, it gave me the document. I asked it to cycle a little bit through some things because I also did want to add on offline capabilities. And so it gave me a very detailed PRD, which I then brought down to my, downloaded it down to my computer, and now that's actually where we're going to start. Now, coming back to Claude Code, you can do a few different things, and one of the things that you can do is run bash commands. So I saved it locally, but not in this particular directory. So with the bash, you can go with the bash sign, you can go into bash mode, and I just want to create a directory for my PRD and oh, the directory doesn't, oh, I wanted to actually create a directory. And then after that, I am going to copy the directory which actually exists in one of the prd.md, and I'm going to move it into docs. All right, so if I want to check that the documentation actually there, I've actually set up cursor, and with cursor here, I can look at my same directory, and this docs folder was created, and the PRD that came over from Gemini is actually saved here. Now, there's a few other things that you can do with Claude that we can probably just look into here. So I can always run these / commands. You can clear the conversation history, and this frees up context. Compact if you want to, if you're kind of close to running out of your context, it'll automatically do that for you, but you can run / compact to do that as well. I always like to kind of keep track of the costs, so I haven't asked it too many questions. I've used about 10 cents. So first step I want to do is, based on that PRD, I do want to actually have a checklist of what I'm going to be working on, which is actually pretty useful because that's what you might want to do if you are checking off your items to keep track of where you are. So I am going to ask Claude to create an implementation plan based on the PRD that I created in the docs folder. And I want it to be a to-do item list, so we want to be able to track progress. Again, this is really nice as you're working with the Claude because it allows you to keep track of where you are, and then you can jump around and ask it to do certain items in the plan. So it's got the implementation plan, and it's got this TinyBase project center, TinyBase configuration, Nest.js backend development. I actually do want it to do something slightly different. So you can always say no when it gives you the option and tell Claude to do something slightly different. So for my particular project, and I'm going to be using TinyBase for in-memory storage, I would like it to kind of switch around the implementation plan a little bit. So I say, please just help me with the local first approach. I want to use TinyBase before working on the back end. Please update the plan accordingly. It's going to cycle through that and then make some of those changes and focus on the local first approach with TinyBase. All right, so it's gone ahead, and as I scroll up, it's moved up the TinyBase into right after the first step, which is cool. I kind of like that, so I'm going to say yes. And let's see if we can just have it save it in. Yep, so yes, you want to create that? Yes, I'll say save it in the docs folder. And hopefully it's going to go ahead and if I were to go and check warp and cursor, yep, let's see that. And another good thing that Claude actually does, it asks your permission before doing some of the more security risky things, such as writing files. And you can obviously tell it for a particular directory never to ask you again. So here, if I go to cursor, which is where I'm actually looking at my editors, looks like it's got the implementation plan all good to go. And we can start working now on the implementation plan as we check off some of the different items. So as you can see, we kind of got started with the Claude Code, and we're able to get it up and running and help us with a few different things. In this particular episode, we helped it create a plan and then worked with it a few times just to kind of get it to refine that plan. So in the next episode, we are going to now look at setting up some of the preferences and how we want to use Claude, as well as start working on the implementation plan, checking off the items one by one. So we'll see what that workflow looks like. So hopefully you enjoyed this very first episode of what it would look like to build with Claude Code. I'm looking forward to taking this on and continuing the conversation in the next episode.